Alright, so I recently played through my first Switch 2 game. Probably most people's first Switch 2 game, although by the time I picked my Switch 2 up, I had other big games to choose from. But Mario Kart World, what a strange entry into the series, honestly. And the biggest reason for that is the open world aspect, not necessarily at around the tracks themselves, but in getting from track A to track B. They honestly did a horrific job executing that here. Maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but I feel like the point to point races in Mario Kart are some of the worst races, honestly, in Mario Kart. I feel like part of the appeal of Mario Kart is having those smaller, 3-lap circuits that you sort of, are able to pick up quickly and start trying to master your boost or your shortcuts and that sort of thing, and just a lot of craziness and unique environments around you in that, as opposed to the point-to-point tracks here, which are mostly, just pretty generic, both in structure and in theming. And besides Mount Wario and Woohoo Island, which I feel like were more, just because of vibes, the only good point to point here I feel like that we had was how they handled Mario Circuit 1, 2, and 3. But that was also partially because it is a returning track you're familiar with. I feel like you can maybe almost get away with a little bit of what Peach Beach was trying here, but I just don't feel like Peach Beach was really executed that well either. And I don't know. If you want to have a longer track, that's fine, but I don't get why we can't go the Wario Coliseum from Double Dash approach instead. And then it's like they forced it into the regular cups. There really should have been like a Legacy Cup feature where, you just do your 3-lappers at tracks other than the first one. Like, I remember it got really confusing to me doing the first cup because, Crown City was a new track, and I legitimately wasn't sure. Like, I thought the second event was just a point to the next track, the next 3-lap track, and then all of a sudden I'm leaving the Crown City area already. I was really confused at first. But to, not have that as an option there, especially when you lock mirror mode behind doing the more traditional cups, you could go into versus mode and, sort of customize and have a more traditional experience there, but I don't know. And I don't have, Nintendo Switch Online, so I don't really know what the online experience is like, but I think I've heard that, a similar thing happened there too, where they went, more kind of forcing you to use the, get to track from track A to B, and that's just... I heard it wasn't the strong suit here, but it was worse than I was expecting, honestly, and even for the open world section where you're just sort of going around collecting shit, it's like they don't have a good map to really structure out, where you've been if you're looking for everything. Like, the only way to tell, where you've been or what you might be missing some stuff is if you, compare it to a map online, which to me in, 2025 is kind of unacceptable. It should be, an option sort of baked into the experience, honestly, especially for a series that, skipped last generation in terms of a new entry, especially when you put the premium $80 tag on it. You also have a new mode completely built around the, routes between tracks being Knockout Tour. It was fine for what it was, I guess. But I don't know, I guess it may have, helped with the fatigue of the routes, having to, do all these other races in them, and then I felt like the Knockout Tour races were a bit tougher than a normal cup too. I don't know if that was just me. The thing that's such a shame though is that some of the new things that this game also does, it does really well. Like, when you're at the track and exploring the surrounding area, it's so much fun to see them, just flesh everything out like that. And I think I would have been much happier if instead of one big open world, it was just 30 smaller areas sort of built around the tracks in the game. It was fun to go and collect all of the block panels. They brought in, some P-switch challenges, which is, kind of like the DS. Granted, I do wish there was maybe a little more variety in terms of the challenges offered, but they were still fun to complete and to sort of help you master some of the other mechanics they added here, such as wall riding and grinding, which I feel like were great additions there, Simple to do, but difficult to master, which I feel like was perfect, especially when you were sort of fleshing out the surrounding areas of the overall world here. And two, I've definitely been one of the people begging Nintendo to re-add, something like the DS challenges. And I guess they did it on tour, but, to finally have it in a mainline entry is fantastic again. I do wish there was better rewards. Like, in terms of unlockables, I feel like they did a general good job with them. Like, still having your coin total contribute towards unlocking all of your cars, that's fine. But to have, different costumes and different characters sort of locked behind different items that you sort of naturally find just through playing the game, I feel like was perfect. Granted, I did sort of grind at the end to get, a few that just, weren't hitting for me. But I feel like that was, a really good structure for that sort of thing. So I wouldn't take any of that away for the open world rewards, but I really don't care about little icon stamps. I wish maybe they had like recolors for the skins or something small like that. Or recolors for the cars. I don't know, but... And there's some really, just fun picks in terms of some of the characters and costumes selected. Like, I wasn't expecting Mariachi Waluigi, which, might be a bit of a call to Waluigi's taco stand. Or, I always thought Goomba would be my main when added to Mario Kart. But then they added Fishbone, which is out there, and there's, a lot of personality. Like, I know Dry Bones in particular, just some of the animations, just from the menus to the actual gameplay. I like how they also sort of soft removed some stuff that was added from Mario Kart 7 and 8, but they also kind of didn't. Like, I feel like how they approached, switching from paragliders to wings or underwater to boat floating, or how I'm pretty sure that the whole anti-gravity mechanic of, boosting by hitting another player is just now baked into the core gameplay. Or maybe an item or certain circumstances. I don't know. I feel like I've done it and I've seen comms do it, but I still didn't really do it enough to say confidently how I did it. But I don't know. Maybe it's all in my head. Maybe I just a couple times caught myself or comms at a good placed side boost / hit of an opponent. Some of the designs too, in general, for the returning tracks, I mean, the N64 ones in particular felt completely brand new, which is crazy, especially considering one of them's Choco Mountain, which is a pretty reoccurring track in the series. Like I said, I just feel like they kept things fresh enough with some of that stuff. And like I said, like I wouldn't mind too, like I feel like Peach Garden from the Booster Course pack also did a good job of shaking things up by adding an alternative route for the third lap. I would have rathered that than, turning Peach Beach in particular into a point-to-point track. I feel like this was the best Bowser's Castle we've probably had in a long time. I feel like Rainbow Road was good too, but it did the point-to-point thing again, and then there were some in-between sections that I don't really get why they were there, because they didn't really feel like Rainbow Road. I don't really know what they were going for, other than just sort of doubling down on, space. But, if I'm on Rainbow Road, I want to feel like I'm on Rainbow Road the whole time. So I would rather if they have, once again, just cut those 2 middle sections and turn it into a bigger 2-lap track. I will say the music still just hasn't really been hidden for me for a while. And there's some legacy music, but I feel like overall the music direction has continued down the path that the last couple games that didn't really resonate with me were going. So it just didn't hit for me again. Not like it used to, but I mean, the big competition last year was this versus Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, and where I feel like this game, when it's going good, is decently better. I feel like the open world woes and just some of the other things that this game represents. I mean, some of the new additions here were really good, really fun, but it's nothing crazy that we haven't seen before. It's stuff that you can imagine on the Switch 1. So why is this, the big exclusive that you need to pay extra money for that's supposed to be that next step, especially after skipping a generation of consoles? The only 2 things I can see is, well, is this the first Mario Kart 2 without, an extended, free online support? Because if Mario Kart 8 Deluxe came out early enough, it would have been out before NSO. So it's like that's taking something away to where, some of the new features almost feel like a trade-off for that. Unless, you were to maybe offer an extended free period for that. I'm not, just talking, free weekend either. So then, I mean, what else could they do to justify that value? Maybe continued support. But they've barely done that too. They released their first big content update when I was finishing up my playthrough, and it's just some new knockout tours, which are, some of the least interesting things they could have done. And it's like, I get that, if they're going to do new tracks, if they want to sort of implement them in here or in its own separate area, kind of as its own open world, that'll probably take a while, that's fine. But in between, 200cc isn't here. There's a lot of NPCs that are already playable, but there's several that aren't, that have models already in the game. You can do what I said about recolors with cars and characters. A lot of the tracks are playable in reverse, so that adds a lot of content right there. Maybe you can, update a few of them so that all of them can be playable like that. But then you can, have your own 150, 200, and mirror playthroughs there, which sort of reminds me, because I think Reverse Cups were in Tour, but I think they were rumored to be considered for Double Dash. And one of the cool things about this game is seeing some of the other tracks while you're racing at a track, just in the background and that. And Double Dash did that too. And it almost makes you think of this game and almost wonder what a Double Dash remake in this style could look like. If, some of this was, I have no proof of this, but things, back then that you can, fully realize now. But yeah, all I can say now is hopefully they clean some stuff up and, keep supporting this game so, people get their money worth with it.